Your entry 24773454999 is not valid, or the meeting has not started yet. Re-enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.
Didn't ask for the code. Anybody on the phone, please?
The number you have dialed is not in...
Your entry is not valid. Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. Your entry 247345499 is not valid, or the meeting has not started yet. Re-enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. You have entered an incorrect access code or PIN.
I don't know. We pay money for this thing.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. If you are the meeting host, enter your PIN followed by a pound.
Anyone on the phone? This thing isn't working either. Having a great day. Wow. Okay, we will call the Selectmen's meeting of October the 19th to order. In deference to some of our presenters, we have asked Trooper Weber to talk to us about body cams, which will be required as part of the new legislation that was passed. So, Matt, if you might come forward, we can swivel them. Well, I don't know, these mics aren't. I don't know these. I don't. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi there, can everyone hear me good?
Yeah, this may not be working, but just speak loudly, I guess.
All right. So, as you know, we're going to be required to have body cameras for every officer starting July 7th of the next year for the new Police Accountability Act. And so I did some research and was trying to get us some rough numbers. And we have a couple different avenues to go down. And I have a little bit of reading for you, not too much. So, the first page, I copied just some highlights of the 71-page bill that was released, and this document pertains to the body cam portion. And if you look at page 29, you'll see under section 858, so every patrol vehicle must be equipped with a dashboard camera as well. So we also need to make sure that any new vehicles we purchase or any existing vehicles we have are all equipped with the dash cam, as well as every officer with a body cam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want questions as we go, or do you want to wait till the end?
If that's fine, go ahead.
How many vehicles do we have that have the body cam now?
So we don't have,
Dash cam.
all our vehicles are equipped with dash cams now. As you know, we're going to be purchasing 2 new vehicles. We just had a new vehicle purchased. And so the plan was before that was to take
All participants have been muted.
the existing dash cam out of our vehicle that we have now and swap it over to a new one. So we're still going to do that, but we also need, if we keep that vehicle, which we're going to need due to manpower, we will have to equip that by next year with a camera.
And what about the ATV?
That does not require a dash cam. Okay. All right. So a couple other highlights that we need to look at is if you go to page 35, it's the last page, and it's not exactly clear yet, but it looks like we will be eligible for a grant. And for us, I would believe it would probably be a 30% grant at the cost that we spend. They have one for 50% and then one for 30%. I believe we would be covered under the 30%. And any questions on that so far? And I just started digging into that, so I don't know the whole logistics of it yet.
Would we apply for the 50 and
You
for
have-
the 30?
I'd have to talk over their finance director over that and to see what we qualify at. It looks like there's 2 levels. I'm not sure if we qualify under the 50% one.
The stress municipality.
I'm not sure we are, but maybe we are. So those are just a couple highlights, and there's some more reading if you guys want to read over on that regarding the requirement. The next document, that's something you guys can read on your own. It's just a little bit of literature of what body cameras are and why they're needed and just how exactly they work. So you guys can read on that on your own. And the last 3 documents I have would be the equipment that we'd actually need to purchase for every officer. Right now the state police uses the Panasonic Arbitrator body-worn camera. And the reason that the state police went to that is we use the Panasonic Arbitrator dash cams in the vehicles, and they are compatible with the body camera. That's what our officers use, is the Panasonic Arbitrator, and they would flow really well with these body cameras. So that's why we chose that. And another reason we chose them was for durability. The battery life, you can easily get 8 to 9 hours out of one of these, so it should cover the shift if they're not running continuously. They have a pretty good warranty. It's 3 years, bumper to bumper on these, so if anything happens, they're covered under the manufacturer's warranty. And then just all the other specs with their Wi-Fi compatible, GPS compatible, and Bluetooth.
So this is the one you have on right now?
This is the one I have on right now. So, you know what, you can pass it around.
So it's on all the time?
So that's another thing. So right now it's shut off, but the good thing about these, once you have it turned on, it's in essence always recording. So once I push the record button for an event that I'm going to, it's going to give me about 30 seconds prior of video only. So if something's about to happen and maybe I'm too slow to press the record button, well, it's already recording, so it did that for me. So it captured that 30 minutes prior of video only. And that's the same way as our dash cameras work as well.
So it's always recording?
Exactly. So it constantly loops, and then like every 30 seconds it will like erase and let you record it. with the equipment that we'd be required to purchase for the in-car docking system. This would be activated automatically when an officer turns. Did that go off? Do you want me to stop?
I don't think it was on.
They're screwing up.
There you go.
It's good.
Oh, no.
Keep going.
Okay. So these are also good because they're pretty easy to use. So if we conduct a traffic stop or activate our emergency lights, our dash cam would come on, and this would come on as well. So now we have video from our dash cam and our body cam. So if responding to a call, you forget to turn it on. Well, if you're going lights and sirens, it's going to come on automatically for you. So just going over numbers, and also these, we've been using these for, I think about 2 years now. We've had them in the state police. They're very durable. We haven't had many issues with them at all. They get knocked off in a tussle. They've been run over on the highway. They can get submerged in water. So we've had really good success with these. So the prices we're looking at for these to equip the officers, the body cam itself runs about $960. The next page is going to be a docking station, and we're in luck because it actually is an 8-holder docking station, and that's how many we would need. So we would put this in the PD, and once an officer puts this body camera in the docking station, it will charge it, and then it also will download any video into our storage system, which we'll get into a little bit. So that's going to run about $1,800. And then the last is we have the in-car docking station, and what this allows is the camera to be charging in the car, and then it also allows the body camera sync up with the dash camera. So all those functions would work. When you turn on the lights, this would come on as well. This also has the ability, when you put it in the car and it's docked and turned on, it will also download video to our arbitrator camera system, and it either has a micro SD card or a bigger storage card, so it makes it a little easier to download when you're out on the road. So roughly, to get us going, the town will need to come up with a little over $11,000 between the 8 body cameras, the docking station, and the vehicle docking station. I think it was roughly around $11,500, somewhere around there. And then we'd have to look at what type of grants we would get. So that's the easy part. And that is actually probably the lowest expense from this whole endeavor. The second part, and it's still a little cloudy, and I'm working on it, and nobody really has answers yet. Where do we store everything? And how do we store it? Well, it looks like, luckily, because we're a resident state trooper town, right now we use the state police to store our arbitrator dash cams. And it looks like they are going to allow us to do that. At what cost, we don't know yet. They still don't know. I reached out to a gentleman, and that's the last page that you have. You'll see email between me and Mr. Scott Stegman. He is the information tech analyst for the state police. And when I reached out to him, he said that that's something that we would be allowed to do, but they are still running it through their legal affairs department and how much it will cost. I would not advise against using an outside agency for storage or using us internally, and the reason for that is, number one, these are already compatible with the cameras that we have in our car. Once we upload this to Troop F, we're done with it. We don't have to worry about FOI requests, any type of legality issues for legal requests, and management of the storage. If somebody wants to view a video, a supervisor or something, they can go ahead with that. Otherwise, we'd have to hire a completely different outfit to do all this. And I don't know what the cost would be with that. I would imagine they'd be significantly higher than what the state police would charge us.
So, would our officers have to download this every night or every after their shift, or
no? So this
if it goes to the state?
So you don't have to download it every night. These store quite a bit of memory, so eventually it will have to be downloaded. So that can either be done by either doing it in our PD, if they're in the PD writing reports or something, they can put it in there and charge. When they're in their vehicle and it's in the docking station, it will also be downloaded, but then you have to download how we work from the downloading of our dash cam video to TrueFF. So there's a couple different ways of doing that via Wi-Fi, and also you can manually take the card out and download it at the Truth. So these do not need to be downloaded every night. If we have a significant incident where we need to download it, we can download it right away. The good thing about this program also, once you get assigned a body camera, it syncs up with your dash camera for retention. So if I need to look at what I did for the whole month, I go onto the Panasonic Arbitrator site, and it will have all of my interactions every time my dash cam and my body camera's turned on, and you can review them. And so that holds it indefinitely.
And how long is the state or storage? How long are we supposed to store it?
So that's another thing that came into effect with the retention. What we did before the videos, they were 90 days if there was no significant event. Right now with the technology, you can pretty much store it indefinitely, but we don't know exactly how long we have to store it for. So that's, again, what Mr. Stegman was referring to. There's a lot of logistics that this is fairly new to everybody, and the amount of data that's going to be stored is just going to be monumental.
And is there like a lead time to order these? I mean, I'm sure every
well, that's
going to be ordered.
Yeah, that's a problem. When I was on a bunch of the sites today, just trying to get some rough estimates for purchasing, everything is back ordered. I don't know the vendor that the state police uses, and maybe they can get us a better deal on everything as a whole, and maybe they can get it to us quicker. But I would say the sooner we get it approved through Board of Finance, the better off we're going to be for being ready and compliant with state law come July.
Matt, for the towns that are not resident state trooper towns, like say East Lyme, where do they store their data?
I'm not sure, because they must have their own cloud system paying directly through Panasonic. They have their own websites through like a cloud storage. But again, they're responsible for all the legalities of it and the FOI and things like that.
Do you think if, again, it's been a while since July since I read the new bill, but access to the data by the public, would it be harder for the public if they're required or allowed to look at the data if it's to get it from, say, TrueFF than it would be from a third party?
No, so that's the good part about this. Any FOI request would go right to our legal affairs and they would handle it. And then another thing is, say we went with a different software company to download our data. In the future, let's say they raise their prices and we don't want to go with them anymore because they're not competitive. Who owns that data then? Do we own it? Do they own it? How do we get that? Is there a fee for it? So I think we really need to do our due diligence of who we go with a contract with once that data is stored, and ease of reviewing it. And if we need it for a case or something, say 5 years down the road, and we switch companies, how do we retrieve that data at that point?
Do we know on a dash cam whose property the video is?
It's part of the state police because it's a resident trooper town. And this would be the same issue.
Well, hopefully they'll let us know pretty quickly whether there's the ability to have them store the body cam.
Well, it sounds like there is, and it's just like I said, they're trying to work everything out because now they're taking on a lot of different resident trooper towns. Some have up to 25, 30 constables as well. So you look at this statewide, it's a humongous task to get done in a short time.
Are non-resident trooper towns able able to contract with the state to
No.
pull the data?
No. No, so like Old Saybrook would be
Yeah.
completely separate, the Old Saybrook.
But obviously the first part is getting the cameras ordered.
Correct.
And the lead time to get it, as Chris mentioned, are we expected to have them operational by July 1st or trained, ready to go?
Well, that's when it goes into law on July 7th, so
Okay.
I would expect to make a good faith effort to get it up and running by then. I'm not sure if, they didn't come in by then, but if we had an issue and look, we've tried everything, here's our purchase order, there's just some back order, I think that could save the town in some type of legality issue down the road. But if we've made no effort to get these, and after July 7th, there could be a serious issue for the town.
Makes sense to use what you're saying to me, and I don't know what the competition is other than Panasonic here, but it makes sense to use what you're using.
I think it does.
Okay, we'll be talking to finance tomorrow.
Yeah, next step, we'll go to finance and present that to them, and we'll do some work and see what type of grant money we can get for this to
I'm glad
minimize the cost.
I'm glad we don't have 9 cameras, otherwise it would trigger another big station.
I know. Maybe someday.
Tim, do we have to make a motion to support this for the Board of Finance?
Well, we could. I think it would. We could refer to the general amount and the fact that there's still a lot of loose ends. But yeah, we could at least get them recommend that they act, and then we could maybe even put a not to exceed kind of thing with a higher number. So
that 11,000
in case
can
something
cover it all?
Well, when I ran through these numbers with Mr. Stegman, his response was, I would say those numbers are about right. So they're in the ballpark.
So if we pad it to like 12, just in case?
Yeah, something like that, not to exceed. Just in case.
And then the only other thing would be the installation of the cost for installation for the docking station at the PD and also the vehicles.
Is that just a plug-in, really, or?
Yes, and then you connect it to Wi-Fi. I think you plug it in because it's power, and then somehow you connect it to your Wi-Fi. So, other than that, I'm not really sure. And then the vehicles, whatever it takes to mount them, I'm not really sure. It's not my expertise.
The backing on your uniform, is that part of the purchase price?
Yeah, it comes in a box, and you get 2 styles to attach it to your uniform. You can either get an alligator clip or else a magnet. I like the magnet just because it works better with my uniform. So you have 2 different ways to attach it.
I make a motion that the board recommends the Board of Finance the arbitrator body cam cradle and docking station as recommended by a resident state trooper up to an amount not to exceed $15,000.
Yeah, it's probably a wise number.
I'll second it. Because we're going to have to install them. So.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, those are, a lot of
It'll be easy.
cars.
Good
Okay.
price.
So we
Yes, sir.
have a motion to approve 15,000 to recommend to the Board of Finance that approval of 15,000 for all this equipment and installation. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Fine.
All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
You all?
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the Halls Road Improvement Committee. Edie Twining has been working on this along with the committee and has a recommendation to approve BSC to be our consulting engineer And we have Kurt there as well. We see Kurt very frequently and maybe even later today.
I think you guys have already seen this, but I'll just pass it on as paper.
Yeah. Okay.
I take my.
Yeah.
I can't hear anything with a mask, so.
It's hard.
So we have come to a recommendation point from the committee to recommend the BSC group. They have worked very hard with us to make sure we've got all the parts and pieces to this, and I'm wondering, would you like to hear from Kurt exactly what he's got on his board, or how would you like me to present this?
I think it would be good just for people that aren't that familiar with it, just to give a running start, and then we can get into the details of the actual proposal, but, just a little historical briefly, and then we can get into the actual proposal itself.
So the Halls Road Improvement Committee has been studying and working on trying to figure out the best way to make some improvements on Halls Road, given the questions of retail from computer changes and now the pandemic. We've realized that there's several challenges on Halls Road. The initial one was pedestrian safety, and with that came the question of where are the pedestrians walking and what retail are they getting to. Currently, the Halls Road is zoned as commercial only, and there are 60-foot setbacks, so all the properties are far away from the road. After working with the Yale Urban Design Workshop as well as the committee members, the vision was to return to a more typical village setup where properties have buildings up closer to the road that would inspire people to walk along the road and enjoy shopping and using the street that way. And also there's been several people giving us feedback that they would like to have mixed use on that road. This would include having apartments above retail or townhouses, all sorts of market rate housing along Halls Road. This would also help to keep it as a village district that would be more alive than it currently is, where it pretty much goes to sleep after 6 o'clock in the evening, and would also help retail, which retail is struggling as it is because of online purchasing, but it's also the things that are seeming to last longer are the more village-oriented type of retail establishments as opposed to strip centers and malls. Those things are beginning to close now, especially after the pandemic. So to do this, we realized we needed to do a real master plan in order to make sure that we're not just coming up with one solution when there might be future solutions needed down the road. And that's why a master plan would identify those questions, would help us to get grants to do the kind of work the town would be responsible for, as opposed to also allowing for property owners to make new types of developments that would include mixed use. And we did put out some informal bids for folks to give us some ideas of what they could provide for a master plan. We had 3 different firms answer the question. And after several go-rounds with various different companies, BSC, who is doing work with us down on Soundview, seemed to be the best solution. So that's where we are today.
So your document refers to the phases and the master plan is important for grant funding as well as just a vision. We had some Yale plan, but that seemed not to be quite the appropriate thing, so that was suspended, and so we're sort of back to square one. I guess there was another plan which was formulated in 2018. It was some 48,000, which I think a lot of that money still exists, which was not Yale, but it was a Pullman and a couple of other firms. So did that have any results, or were they not used? I'm not really sure.
There were two pieces to that funding. One was to provide TIF documentation and how we would use something like that. It was kind of a premature idea, and that was the bulk of the cost. And then also the Yale Urban Design Workshop, which we used 2 of the 3 phases that they offered to do with us, and then ended that relationship after we got what we thought was the most useful part from them. And then in 2019, we provided a vision document from the committee, which is this piece here, which I think you might have seen before. It's also on the town website. And this will actually be the piece that helps BSC understand where they're getting to. The overall vision, it's not a complete master plan, which is why we need professional help as opposed to something that we put together based on the history of Old Lyme, as well as the current use and future use on Halls Road, and how best to apply to that, including things like a pedestrian bridge over the old bridge embankment. Make it a more lively street that is really welcoming to people when they first come into Old Lyme. So it's a nice finite piece of property as opposed to a long Route 1 situation where you could just sprawl forever. This is a very short piece of land, and it could easily translate into what was once in Old Lyme, which is Lime Street Town Center.
Now, with respect to the DOT and Route 1, obviously it is a state road, and as is 156 in Soundview, and there are certain things we can do and other things that we might not be able to do. It's sort of a chicken and the egg. Do we try to get from DOT at the outset what we might be able to do, or do we have to have the plan to go to DOT and then they can tell us what we can do and can't do?
Yeah, great question, and it's really a little bit of both. At the beginning of the process, we'll engage DOT to try to get a summary of the things that they're thinking about, summary of the things that we definitely couldn't do based on some of the plans that have already been developed. So we want to develop that broad picture of what their limitations, opportunities may be. As we move through the process, we'll check in with them frequently to make sure that as we advance the master plan and the various elements that are within it, we're running those things by DOT. So at any point, if we come up with something that they say, well, you're not going to be able to do that, we can immediately change course, adapt. What we don't want to do is get far along in the planning process and then find out while we're at step 10, there was something that we had decided upon back in step 3 that has subsequently made other decisions and such that DOT says, well, you can't do that. So that'll change everything. So there'll be a lot of communications throughout the process with DOT.
Yeah, because I told Edie that when I was speaking to a DOT representative unrelated to this was about a stoplight at the Big Y, and he was asking whether the town might want one of these sensors that the emergency vehicles could push a button and it made it red light so they could go through. And I said, well, I have you. There's a push button for pedestrian crossing from the gas station on the other side of the street to the Big Y, but the button is up on a mound at the gas station, and if it were closer to the building on the east where the donut place is and Webster Bank, or no, I guess it's the other bank, that would be more convenient. He said, no, that's going to be a wetland. You couldn't put the button over there. I said, well, it's Huntley Road, and so it's just an example of if you can't even move the button for pedestrian crossing or make a pedestrian crossing, and the same might be true at the post office to get people across in some fashion. It would be a fairly big impediment if we got red lighted on both of those. So I was just wondering if, in a big picture, we could find out preliminarily what their appetite might be to allow movement across Halls Road in a safe fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that example was something that we would look at as part of the master plan. For example, the location of the wetlands. We'll do some test fit scenarios for maybe reconfiguring the intersection to optimize safe pedestrian access. Maybe there's another location that we could put the ped box. So we'll look at those kinds of things within the context of the study. And that's important because it all has to work together. It all has to work in a comprehensive manner if we're considering potentially changing the zoning, as Edie said, for other construction. All of the infrastructure pieces have to support that. It all has to work in harmony. So that's a big part of what the master plan process will do. It'll look at all those disparate pieces and determine how they all tie together and interact with each other.
So if this all has to work together, are all these homeowners, or not, well, business owners, willing to do what you're planning here?
That's not our plan. That's an initial plan. Our master plan will actually pick up where this left off. So we will actually go through and validate those types of things. That's a great point because as part of our scope of work, we have a real estate professional that will be looking at the real estate aspects of what we can do out there. She'll be doing a market assessment, market demand, what kind of residential, retail, and those kinds of things are in demand. She'll project that into the future to make sure that we're making the right decisions about what kind of buildings, density, content, and those kinds of things. So we're going to take a hard look at that and flesh out what's really doable based on various factors, DOT, zoning, market forces, and those kinds of things, infrastructure availability, water, sewer. As I said, there's a lot of pieces involved.
This is also all privately owned and can be funds.
That's correct, yeah.
I mean, have you guys talked to these guys already?
All that we're really doing is we're making it possible so that down the road, when it is, if the zoning has changed so that the property owners can actually make a greater profit on their properties, they have that opportunity now on Halls Road, which they do not have currently. I know that the folks that own Treasures, for example, several years ago they wanted to expand a second floor so that they could get better income on their property, but they couldn't do it because it was, it was zoned as commercial only, and I think they wanted to put apartments up there. So there is some interest. No one has signed up and said we're going to do this, but that's something that we're giving the possibility for that by changing the zoning, which is there today.
So do we need this study to change the zoning though?
That's coming in the study. The zoning would be part of the study, the master plan.
So for the price of $46,000, we can get the zone changed?
Yes, we're
we can't do that on our own?
What?
We can't do that on our own?
No, we cannot. We've talked to
zoning?
zoning about it. We've talked to multiple people about it. So it is not something that we have a volunteer zoning board, and they are not ready to be writing code. Now, what we will need is to get them to for us to either use our town lawyer that will do the zoning sort of blessing on the verbiage that we come up with for the village district, or BSC can provide that type of lawyer as well.
And I also want to add that the zone change is kind of a broad definition. Within that zone change, we need to consider what kind of use, what kind of density. Is it 1 story, 2 story, 3 stories? So there's a lot of different factors that have to get looked at in order to inform what do you want the zoning to be out there. Mm-hmm. So right now, yes, we could change the zoning. We just don't know what to change it to. Massing, density, parking, even the design standards that tie into the zoning, that doesn't exist yet. And that's what this study will define, to make sure that as we make those zoning changes, it's being done the right way to guide the future development to meet the vision that the town wants out there. The zoning is sort of the vehicle through which that gets created. And then hopefully also allows a factor to bring in private investment. That's a huge part of this, that yes, the town could fund some things, the state could fund some things, for example, roadway development or something like that. We want to create an environment where a developer wants to come in and invest in that area. That's a critical part of this.
And part of their interest is knowing that the town is open and interested in having that happen. I think that's another reason why the master plan helps to provide that information to property owners, that we're a town that wants to see improvements on Halls Road. We've hired BSC to do the master plan. We're working towards getting to that end where, right now there are no sidewalks, no crosswalks. There's no pedestrian traffic there currently. And, but if you look at Lime Street, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic because it's a nice street that people want to walk down, but there's nothing to buy or get to. So the hope is to maybe link those things together in the future.
So I saw something in the minutes of the Harbor Management Commission meeting implying that they were going to recommend that we have a study of pedestrian usage before we put in sidewalks or something. How is that? Does that make sense to you all that, that we require this a separate study like that as opposed to a whole market analysis? We kind of think that would be, I would kind of think that would be part of the market analysis of the users going forward, as opposed to just a study of number of people walking in a particular time and place now, because we're looking into the future, correct?
Yeah. Number one, our work will assess the viability or the demand for sidewalks in both a present and future scenario. We're assuming that in a future scenario, if the vision of the master plan plays out, that absolutely sidewalks are a critical piece of kind of that multimodal, right now it's absolutely automobile-centric out there. We want to try to get away from that, especially if there's residential down there. We want to get feet on the street. We want to bring some life to the area. You theoretically could do a study today to determine our sidewalks, and that would probably be as simple as doing some pedestrian counts. How many people are out there, walking on the side of the road, or those kinds of things. The danger with that is you would invest a lot of money potentially to put sidewalks in an area that may get reconfigured. And that's a key point of where we talk to DOT. What are their future plans for the road? As part of this master plan, there could actually be some reconfigurations of that roadway recommended. So the alignment could change in a slight way within the DOT right-of-way, and the sidewalks would be within that context. So again, the sidewalks, in my opinion, are one piece of all these other factors that we're going to put in there. And then we also need to think about, what are the sidewalks for? The sidewalks are to create an accommodation for pedestrians. So then we need to ask ourselves through the study, if we do A, B, and C, how many pedestrians will end up being down there? So theoretically today, you could drive down the street and say, I really didn't see any pedestrians. So I can come to the conclusion that sidewalks are not needed. There's no demand there. Or is there a latent demand? If we put sidewalks in, would suddenly people want to walk down there? We'll actually look at that.
And does the DOT prefer to see a master plan versus doing things piecemeal before they make decisions or before you get grants? So we're going to put in sidewalks here. Would they rather see a whole complete street format which opens up opportunities for the town for grants?
Yeah, good question. It's our experience that particularly when you're pursuing funding, which is a really big part of this whole master plan process, we want to set the town up to get future funding, whether it be connectivity, lot SIP, STEEP, other funding that may come out from the federal government. It's been our experience that they like to see things that have been well studied, a lot of the funding applications that they look at first start with their planning department. So they know these people are planners. They want to see that you've done your homework, that you've backed up your decision for what your project is, what your particular project is. They want to fund things that they know have been proven, proofed out, that are valid. So it's been our experience that if you have that backup of the study, and then that study is used to develop the conceptual plans that you then submit for funding, you stand a much higher chance of getting that funding.
Now, on the old Lime Shore side, which is where the big Y is, there's a system, a septic, a good system, but probably not sufficient to take any more. So, would the study by the real estate people, if they said, yeah, some mixed-use housing would be good, would they go into what would be required and look at the adjacent land and see if there could be some community systems put in somewhere, like in Treasures out that way, there's some open land, but where the hideaway is, it's a little, there's marsh right there and other, so who knows, but I know at the hearings, the people were a little concerned about, okay, if we put in a bunch of housing, we're going to need sewers. So I think there's nothing close that would be a sewer that I'm aware of at this point. So if it could be done through a community system, that would at least keep it within the boundaries of the district as opposed to having a bigger solution. So maybe, is that part of the study?
Yes, that would be looked at, and that's another example of how all these things interplay with each other. They're very interdependent. So we may look at something under a scenario of, if there are septic systems, what are our limitations for residential or other businesses for that matter, as limited by the availability of the septic systems. We could also look at future scenarios. If there were sewers, what might the difference be? And that way the town can look at variations in potential tax revenues from the different scenarios. So that will be absolutely part of it.
So the proposal, what do you figure would be the timeline on the proposal that has been crafted here?
Yeah, we can theoretically begin immediately. Edie, I think we had talked about, was it 4 to 6 months? I can't recall, but
I think it was closer to 4, but
yeah. So 4 months. Yes, absolutely reasonable.
And a lot of that depends on how quickly you can get decisions made by other people.
Sure, right. A lot of times we can move things forward, but when it comes to third parties, we sometimes have to wait till they get us critical information so we can proceed. But I think 4 months is absolutely a reasonable time.
And does that involve a lot of interviews with current property owners to fathom their appetite, or do you don't do too much of that?
I think as part of it, we should have some plan in place at the beginning of the project to define who we talk to. I think that is a very valuable part of a master plan, and that's part of that real estate assessment. So we would work with Edie to define, who do we want to talk to, how many people, in a sense, get a representative sampling of the business owners in the area. That's very valuable information. And I think some of that has already taken place, so we're going to be picking up on that. Yeah. Moving it forward.
I mean, it's kind of different between business owners versus property owners, because it's the property owners that own the whole area around the hideaway, or so there's not that many small property owners there, and obviously the whole Big Y Center is one big piece that might end up coming much later on, but it's, but we have talked with Matt Prosser quite a few times about this. So. And he's not ready to do something right away.
What?
He's not ready to do something right away, but he has explained to us that his investments are more involved in residential than retail at this point. So If he were to do anything, it would be residential, not retail. So, but it could sit there for quite a while. You know.
Yeah, because I imagine the rental rates aren't that buoyant in Oldheimer, Connecticut. You know, it's not like you're going to ride the wave and look. If you're $15 a foot now, you're going to get $20 a foot in 5 years because it's so low.
No, they're not, especially retail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Residential is changing, but yeah.
We have a committee member.
I'm a member of the Halls Road Committee.
Yeah.
My name is Bud Canaday. I have a question for you. I read over your master plan for the Hartford Avenue project, and it's been, I'll say, a couple of weeks since we did it. Mm-hmm. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but that seemed very specific to what they were planning to do, rather than ours, which you're getting into zoning, you're getting into what kind of use there's going to be. This was really more, in my opinion, really almost an engineering study of what they were going to do, and yet that was considered a master plan and got them a fair amount of money. Is that something we can do? You know, we're not out to reinvent the wheel here. We just want to do a few things, and is that a possibility that we could get the same results without having to decide whether we're going to have mixed use, or we're going to have sewers, or any of that sort of stuff?
So, are you asking the Halls Road master plan, or
yes.
Okay.
The Halls Road master plan, something similar to what you did for Hartford Avenue.
Theoretically, you could do what was done for Hartford Avenue, but it would be heading down the wrong path for the Halls Road area. The Hartford Avenue project was very specific, and based on the funding source, very specific to streetscape and sidewalks.
Right.
For Halls Road, based on the work that Edie's done, it's the desire of the committee and the project is to do a much more comprehensive study.
I know that. I've been on the committee longer than anyone before. It's the first one on it. And so I know that. That's been a feeling for some committee members. I'm not particularly of that bent. And, you know, we're looking at sidewalks, streetscaping, plantings, lighting, that sort of thing. And, you know, that's all we're going to do, because the rest of it's all private property, as you all know, and somebody's, you know, who knows what they're going to do, who knows, and if anything may happen. So do we spend the money for all the zoning business when really all we need to do is sidewalks if we can, and plantings, and a bridge over the Lieutenant River or something like that?
I think the phrase "what you need to do" needs to be decided at the committee level, and then we take our charge from the committee based on the goals that the committee has set.
So if we could get done what we can physically do as a town without having to go into all this extra stuff.
Theoretically, sure, if that would meet the goals that the committee has.
That's all I need to know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you have the design tools and the resources, yeah, you know, but keep in mind that there's a lot of things involved: computer systems, engineering, landscape architecture, and whatnot. Most towns don't have those resources, which is why this is what we do.
Thank you.
Also, it's not just the committee that has made these requests. We've got multiple letters to the committee stating that they're interested in seeing more than just a sidewalk show up on Halls Road. We've gotten quite a few things beyond just the committee's feelings, and it's not just feelings. I think it's quite a few people, and from the studies that the EDC has been doing, there is a real appetite for making Halls Road something that we are proud of, that represents what Old Lyme's character is about, and is not happening on Halls Road right now. So I think we've really heard loud and clear from the community. It's not just a committee decision. It's something we've heard from multiple people. When we ran our open houses, we had a lot of people come and look at it and ask questions and vote on things that they thought were important. And we've followed through on multiple meetings throughout the town. So it's not just a two-person want to do this, and I know what you want, Bud. So.
Well, it is a unanimous decision, though, to do
Yes.
a business. Believe me.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me, if the whole line is going to be viable, certainly the pandemic has put more question mark in a lot of businesses' viability. And if we are going to be here, being an ongoing entity, we have to look at how we take care of our businesses, how we grow the businesses that people who want to live here, grow here, walk here, scale down from their homes. I mean, I know it's all part of economic development, but this particular section is our main business area, so we have to figure out how we can keep those businesses here, keep our dollars here instead of going across the street or across the road and spending money in neighboring towns, so we can spend it here. We've heard in SWOT analyses that people want to walk, people want to hike, people want to get out of their cars and do things. They want to go to the art district and take advantage of, doing something fun with their family, and then maybe getting a cup of coffee or something and meeting with people, then we can get out of this pandemic situation. But without this master plan, from what I can tell, without the input that it has from the SWOT analysis, we're just going to continue to kick the can down the road. And I'm really hopeful that your committee, I really thank you all for working so hard on this. But I think you are interested in hiring a firm that we've seen work very well with Bullvine, and I wish you all the best because I think we're going to need it, especially after the pandemic.
Now, as you go looking through the research, talking with the property owners and so forth, if you get the sense that, say, Lime Stores or the Hideaway group says, gee, interesting, but it's really not in my cards, Now, there could be a successor owner, who knows. But does some of that reaction from the owners, might that direct the plan in a different direction if there was an unusual resistance to some of these concepts that might involve removing buildings and rebuilding them and so forth and so on? Would that change the complexion, or is that just you keep going and say, well, this owner may not like it, but maybe there'll be a new owner that will? So, I mean, if you start getting negativity, do you modify, or do you keep going and say, well, we want to have a good plan so that when an owner is ready to go, we have it?
Yeah, good question. It's certainly an iterative process. So all the data that's obtained is constantly fed into the master plan. And keep in mind, the master plan is an evolutionary thing that evolves over the course of the project, and then there's a final. But it's not like we do something and then sit down and create the master plan. So the master plan is the end result of the process. The process is really the critical piece. That way the master plan is relevant and has meaning and represents what is collectively desired. So all that data does get taken in, and yes, we do factor in things such as, all right, what do we have today, but what are the future considerations? And that's where things like the zoning changes come into play, things like, okay, what tax revenue can be realized from some of these things? What weight is placed on that additional tax revenue? So it all gets factored in, and it's a very iterative manner. And that's where we have the frequent meetings with E's committee to talk about the latest bits of data that we've gotten, what that means, how we want to adapt based on that data.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, though, that if you've got a couple of major properties that said, in this climate, I don't see it, and then even if the climate was better, I'm still not convinced whether, they're going to be holdouts, so to speak, and how do you incorporate that in the plan?
Yeah, and it can certainly be done, and keep in mind the master plan will lock down the time horizon, but we could be looking at a 10-year horizon for something like a full build-out or those kinds of things. Again, We want to understand what's out there, what's the potential to be out there, what zoning changes are needed to support that potential. Then the plan defines what ultimately that potential is. And as I said before, we want to get private investment down there to enhance some of the underutilized or unutilized properties. Putting in that mix of residential can bring additional tax revenue, additional feet on the street, and really give the area some life. So it's not just about the aesthetics, it's about really making a fundamental change to that district and giving it some sort of identity.
I know that I attended the first Selectmen at Old Saybrook's meeting a couple of years ago, his community before they went to vote for the TIF district. It took them 15 years to get that, but they did get it, and they were using that specifically for the first entrance into Saybrook. That's about a mile from making that TIF district, and they worked really hard. And I think they worked with you and forget who they worked with, but it took them 15 years, but they had a master plan. They had it down to a way they could communicate with their community, and they got it approved. But they had to have a master plan, and they had to go through all the communications, which I know BSC is very good at communicating with the community before it got accepted to the point that they could pass that sort of zoning and tax revenue for that part of the town. It's going to be wonderful, and I don't see why we should be any different in looking at opportunities like that in Old Lyme instead of going to Old Saybrook.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of potential out there, for sure.
And also, we've had in the POCD for the last 10 years a call for needing more diverse types of housing. And if you put it into a town center, that allows people to live in the town, walk to the shops, move around in the shops. And that's something the town has never really addressed, and it's been identified for quite a long time now. So it is a need. How we get there and whether we get the right new development people in to do that kind of work is yet to be seen, but with a strong master plan that gives the opportunities for people, there's much more likelihood than just leaving things just as they are to stay commercial only with no residential allowed in that area. So that's another reason for aiming for this.
Now, under fees for services, it's a lump sum. However, there would be other expenses that would be at cost, extra. So what would you say should be the upside amount that the town should make available for this? Just because if we did the proposed fee of $46,500, then there's other incidentals. So
yeah, and I envision that and to fund the proposal for everyone's benefit, those are mileage, postage, shipping, and printing. Those are pretty minor costs. It's probably at the most $1,500, and that's budgetary. It's only charged at actual cost. So if you set aside $1,500 and only use $500, that's all you're going to get billed.
We need to be cognizant.
Sure. And the reason that we don't put that in as a fixed piece is because we simply can't predict it.
Right.
It's very unpredictable.
So with the other studies, the Yale studies, what did that, we spent a lot of money on that. What became of that?
We spent $13,000 on it.
Well, still $13,000.
So it was originally going to be 26.
Mm-hmm.
And what came of it was that we didn't feel like they were able to really engage the town in a productive way. So what we got from them was some very good AutoCAD drawings of the whole area. And we got their analysis of how do you make this a more engaging street and a village district. And they looked at 4 or 5 different layout options. And so that's what this batch of drawings is based on their final suggestion of what they thought would work well, and that we thought was on target as well. So, you know, we definitely got some value from them. We got the ball rolling. We had 2 town meetings with them that they led, and by the end of the second one, we had asked them to put different types of examples of buildings in their presentation, and they didn't. And it was like, we don't want a 5-story brick building in Old Lyme, you know? And they were just missing the mark. So they did give us some valuable information, but there were some other issues that we thought they just weren't paying attention or had enough time to give us what we thought was going to help the town realize this idea and this vision. So we did not do more than $13,000.
I just think because this is all privately owned, this is going to be really, really difficult.
The what?
Because all this land is privately owned. The town doesn't own anything.
We're only offering the opportunity where the town is not doing any development on the private land, as you're saying. So we're just offering an opportunity for people who are struggling to keep a retail-only area alive to be able to introduce residential so that they can actually make a profit on their land and keep it looking good. Yes, it is. I mean, the only thing the town has jurisdiction about is where the roadway and the streetscape is developed. That's exactly right.
If this study were concluded, everything according to plan, what future commitments would the town likely have to think about next round, so to speak? What would happen? We have the plan. If we want to pursue grants, I understand the plan would help get things done, but I guess you have the beautification of Route 1 and perhaps some sidewalks, but would there be any other things that would follow along after this plan were completed that you can predict would logically come along, either of you?
Well, as Edie said, I think the public domain is really the only thing besides the regulatory side of the equation, and that's the zoning and the design standards that'll be part of this scope of work. That's what the town has over the private property. So the town's domain is the right-of-way, essentially the DOT right-of-way, but and we would hope to cover that with grants. What then you would hope is that private development, because you've now created an environment where people want to invest, they see a return on the investment, so private money would come in and work on the private properties. Then from that, the hope is that the town realizes the tax benefits, and that's where we look at these kind of planning projects as investments into the locale. The return on the investment is increased tax revenue. And other minor, improved safety and those kinds of things. But, ultimately, from a purely business standpoint, if you will, from a town standpoint, yes, they have an area that's aesthetically pleasing and all that kind of stuff, but it's really an increase in tax revenue that is the real, I'll say, tangible benefit of these types of studies.
Now, is the TIP concept pretty well had it?
I think that's either way down the road or I know that my brother, who is a developer as well, who does work in bigger cities, he's talked with various people who actually got involved with the TIF district ideas years ago, and he said, small towns and TIF districts don't really merge that well together. So, this is just one opinion I've heard, but I think the other question you might have been asking is what other costs would be associated after we have a master plan. Is that correct? So once we have a master plan, we would still need to do the engineered drawings for the streetscape, which would be probably an RFP to get that done. We'd get grants to do the actual implementation.
Maybe it's kind of like Soundview sidewalk.
Yeah. And also in some other bids I've seen, there's the opportunity for a company to help go out and seek developers for doing the private development. And that's something that you can actually hire a firm to do for you, which would help ensure that all this work we've done in the master plan actually gets realized.
And I want to stress, once the master plan is done and the design standards and the zoning changes are in place, developers then have the opportunity to come to the area and do projects. The streetscape work and all that physical infrastructure change doesn't necessarily have to come first. You could find that your current zoning in and of itself is just simply a barrier to developers being interested in doing work down there. So that's where the market assessment part of this master plan will let us know, is there an existing interest as it stands today? So it doesn't necessarily have to be in a linear manner. Master plan gets done, grant gets established, streetscape gets done, then developers come in. You may find through this study that because the developers see that you have a vision, see that we've created the zoning platform that's appropriate for the type of development that you want, developers may start knocking on the town's door and say, hey, we'd like to take a look at that area. And that could actually precede any work along the streetscape.
And also the streetscape could be done in phases.
Absolutely.
So you could just
Very
do
common.
the north side of Halls Road to start with, that kind of stuff. So.
And I think it would help if we had a master plan, if the developer was interested in here to have a master plan that say, this is what we're looking at, this is what we think, versus, I know a couple years ago Tesla came to town and wanted to put in 10 of their proprietary charging stations out kind of by the Bowery, but facing Halls Road. And each of these charging stations says Tesla in neon letters at night. If that had been something that zoning had been interested in, and we have a little piecemeal, we have a charging station thing on Hartford or on Halls Road. The fact that zoning didn't feel they had the time, expertise to develop the zoning guidelines for that sort of thing is an example to me of why we need expertise from the outside coming in to provide that predictive evaluation and then to vote on it and go through the town meeting approval part of that. But that's an example that they just could come in because we don't have any laws that says we can't do that. But we also didn't have a law that said we could. So that's where having the zoning piece done with the master plan would really help with it. The developer know if their particular project was a good fit for Old Run.
Yeah, the zoning is a very important piece, and that's how the town established the vision, and that's the mechanism through which the town controls how development happens out there. And we'll study various zoning platforms, whether it's overlay districts, planned area developments, or a combination thereof, form-based zoning, prescriptive zoning. Those are all tools that we'll look at and see which fits best for the town. Ultimately, you want to make sure that you preserve whatever character you decide you want to have for the town. And as we've seen, some towns in Connecticut have said, we're not concerned with it. Let somebody put a big box retail store or a factory down there, that's okay. The master plan will guide us to see what does the town want, what kind of character, what kind of scale, what kind of density. That's what this will do. And again, it'll set and create a roadmap for the next 10 to 15 years to make sure that you have a vision that everybody agrees upon.
So if the committee has a discussion and you have a discussion with zoning, and if for some reason zoning is not cooperative, that could be a fly in the ointment, I suppose.
Zoning has said quite a few times they'd really like to see a change.
Okay, yeah. So there's hope.
I mean, I don't mean to preempt you, but if they actually suggested to us when we presented this document, gee, this should be a village district. So we didn't even, suggest that. They came up with it. So.
And it's certainly collaborative in nature, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody is a citizen of the town of Old Lyme. What do you want your town to be?
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't care.
Well, I think we know that we have, as a line item, 48,000 in a carryover sense that was for this tax incremental financing proposal, but that was not used to any large extent. So in terms of, I probably, depending on the nature, we might have to have permission to switch it from one, well, I guess it's called land use planning and development. So that's probably broad enough that it wouldn't require any further discussion there. The committee voted unanimously to pursue this, so I think that's an important variable. And you know, we had a couple of different things going on. The Yale plan didn't go the distance, and the TIF proposal didn't go the distance. So I guess we owe it to ourselves to have something go the distance and decide what we're going to do there. I think there's a variety of opinions on it, but until you have and I think we have confidence in BSC that they would ferret out the issues and guide us properly to get this thing analyzed so we know where we're going with it, because we've been talking with it for, what, 5-6 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bud was one of the originals. So, if the board votes to move it to the Board of Finance for consideration tomorrow, then that'll be their decision to approve it as well. And if that happens, then we can start doing things. You feel comfortable making a recommendation?
Go ahead. I feel comfortable seconding.
Well, I think the motion would be that the Board of Selectmen recommends to the Board of Finance to utilize the carryover amount not to exceed 48,000 to fund the plan as recommended by the Halls Road Improvement Committee to engage BSC Group to prepare the plan and I guess to prepare the plan.
Second.
Do we have discussion on the motion we've had so far?
So this money's already approved, basically.
Yes, well, it was approved and then it was carried over, so that's why I asked the question about incidentals, because you got to stop the postage meter at 48,000.
Yeah, I don't envision those incidentals will be much.
So yeah, it would not be a town meeting type of thing. It's funds that are on hand.
Set aside for this project, basically.
Excuse me?
This was already set aside for this project.
Yeah.
It's called Land Use Planning and Development. So it's in the Land Use Department domain, but it was used for this purpose, Halls Road, and we could check with the Finance Department to see if that's okay. To planning and development would be, it's not the TIF stuff per se, but it's planning and development, which seems to me
Actually, when I
just what
came
we're doing.
to the Finance Board back in February, I brought an earlier proposal from the BSC because I thought, gee, if we're going to get the master plan done, we better make sure there's funds for this. I didn't know that we had the $48,000 sitting somewhere that was carried over. And the Board of Finance suggested, oh, isn't there $48,000 sitting here waiting to do the Halls Road thing? So they, again, suggested it for us. So.
Yeah.
And I know they have carried it over for this year. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, if it's already approved, I'm okay.
All right, we're ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you later on.
Would you guys like to keep one of these?
I have one, if anyone, would you like to?
Sure.
Thank you. Very good. The next item is to review the minutes, approve the minutes of October 5th. So may we have a motion to
I'll make a motion approved.
Second?
moved and seconded. Do we have comments?
I have no comments.
All right, hearing none, may we vote on it? All in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is a letter which was to myself with copies to the Board of Finance Chair concerning repaving a street in White Sand Beach, which is the principal street to get to the town beach, called White Sand Beach Road, and they also installed a new catch basin. They are requesting that the town help with the cost of the road work on White Sand Beach Road and the catch basin itself. The allocation for the White Sand Beach Road is $72,000. That was what the contractor said the cost was for that. And the catch basin is $3,500. And they were suggesting that the town, they would love us to contribute 50% of that, which my calculation is $37,750. They, as part of the sewer work and so forth, they did all their roads, so their costs were significantly higher than that. In the past, I know as part of the discussion about how much White Sand Beach receives from the town on an annual basis in the way of stipends, the town has usually paid White Sand a larger amount of money than comparable beaches because of the fact that we use the roads, and our beach is obviously down in the center of their beach, and so I think it's been approximately $4,000 to $5,000 more than either similar sized beaches. When there was also a water issue, there are pumps down near the parking lot which pump out seawater for the most part when it happens, and we've helped replace pumps over the years on a 50% basis. So this amount is certainly not a budgeted amount, and so the finance will have to look at this. I wouldn't say that historically the funds we paid in addition to what other beaches have received would necessarily pay for this, but it is notable that we have provided larger subsidies because of the fact that town beach is there. And agreeably, the wear and tear of the road is slightly more because of town traffic and security and so forth. So I think this is going to be on the Board of Finance agenda, and I think there is a certain justification for helping on this, and as to whether the fact that we have paid a little bit more all the time would be some help on that or not could be argued. It might be with security and other things. Those funds are not only related to the road. So
No, was the 75,000, was that the total bill to pave or the main road going in?
No, the whole bill is $344,000 for all our roads.
Okay.
But the contractor gave a price for the White Sand Beach Road, which is from the gate down to the beach.
To the parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then there was the catch basin. I'm not sure whether that was a new it does say new catch basin, so there must have been a drainage issue. I'm not sure where that catch basin is.
Well, I do remember in the past that we have split the main road going down cost-wise for other repairs, the 50/50s. Split.
When it was redone?
I think there were some other repairs, and at one time the pump. Remember, there's always a low spot down there, and it floods the parking lot. I think they split the bill with them.
Yeah.
And they had a dry well installed one other time. I think that. I mean, we do use that. I mean, that's our access road.
You know, it's come up people in the past at the Board of Finances, why are we always asked after the project is complete for our help? Why are we never asked or informed before the project gets underway with an opinion? Is there some other way to manage this? So this is like just the third time now that this has happened, and I recall where we were asked after the fact to pitch in.
I agree. They didn't know this has been coming. They could have said it last winter, and we could have put it in the budget for this year.
Yeah, I'm sure they paid the bill, and it could be paid as part of the budget.
Or can we put it in the next year's budget and cut them a check in July?
I mean, that's a valid question. I know the road, I know we use it, I'm not saying it's not a thing for us to consider. What I just object to is not being considered up front for the opinion. It's a lot of money for us, and it's not the first time this has happened.
Well, we
see
can
what the Board of Finance says.
Yeah, we can comment about this at the Board of Finance and see what they think. I know there was a committee of the Board of Finance that looked at all the beach payments and reconfigured how they were done. And
that's based on security. That's strictly based on the budget they give the whole every year. It's based on security. It has nothing to do with this.
yeah.
How they use it, but that's just set based on the security budget.
No, I don't have a problem paying our share. Just, I wish we had a heads up.
Yeah. I think that's being.
Well, I'm not sure when they how far in advance they knew they were going to do all their roads, but
I'm sure they put it out to bid.
Yeah, but as to when, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can talk about this tomorrow.
Well, I mean, generally, the Board of Finance likes to know what the Board of Selectmen thinking. If you don't think that's important, that's fine. But I personally hope that you tell the Board of Finance that.
Well, I think we feel that it is a relationship where we use the road and we have access, and so I think it, as Chris says, it's something that is probably legitimate, and the question of how we might do it and when might be the question.
I'm sure this was planned for. You said it cost $300,000. They just didn't, make that up. So.
And if we keep going like this, if they know they can keep coming back to us after the fact, what's to stop them from changing the behavior?
Well, we could take a vote and say that we think that half of 72,000 and half of 3,500, I calculate to be 37,750. That we think this would be a fair thing for the town to pay its fair share, but it's not in the budget, so we may look to the Board of Finance to discuss how and when it would be paid.
I think we should go back to them frankly and just say, look, we're willing to take this up at the Board of Finance, but we need some assurance from you that you will, in the future, talk to us ahead of time so that we can properly budget for these expenses. I'm uncomfortable just saying, yeah, we think it's legit. When I really don't think it is. They should have called, they knew they were going to budget for this, they knew their roads were going to get done, they should have talked to us.
Well, that's why when is a $60,000 question, because it's currently not something that we've been able to put in the budget heretofore.
But I think the conversation with White Sands Beach is the missing part of that formula. We can postpone it till the next budget cycle, for example. But we're not talking about with the White Sands Beach Association getting, neighbor to neighbor a decision on, look, we can't continue like this.
Yeah, I think this, probably White Sand is the only beach that has these kinds of things that come along, so I don't think the other beaches have ever.
Do we want to invite them in for next meeting and have this exact conversation with them?
I'm hoping they're going to be at the Board of Finance tomorrow, because this was addressed to Mandy Russell, the chairman of the Board of Finance, so.
Well, I think Andy will be very firm because he's been firm with them in the past about this.
Yeah.
And, like Mary just said, I mean, they've always pulled a surprise on us on this stuff.
Yeah, they've come to the Board of Finance before, after the fact.
It's always been after the fact.
Yeah. Well, with the
pumps.
pumps.
He's talking with us before.
With the pumps, they gave us a heads up on that. A little better warning on that, but.
Yeah, but that was $12,000, if I remember correctly. This is
Wow.
$37,000. Like I said, be neighborly, I agree to paying it, but I just wish they'd give us a heads up.
Well, do we want to convey to the Board of Finance that we think the transaction on our terms should be recommended?
Recommended whether they give us heads up?
Well, to say that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the White Sand request be honored, but it has to be as prescribed by the Board of Finance. And if they feel differently, they can feel differently, but at least it doesn't specify we want to get it done right away because we don't have it in the budget.
I think I'd be more comfortable asking the Board of Finance for how they'd like to deal with this issue because it's happened now at least 3 times going forward. And then take a vote about the amount. I'd like to ask everyone's opinion on how we're going to change this behavior before we approve the expense.
So let them come to the Board of Finance tomorrow night, and then we'll vote on it in 2 weeks.
Fine. Okay. Right. The next item. This is an Eagle Scout, Aiden Russell. We met Aiden when he came to our meeting on the 3rd of August. And he asked that we help him out with a memorandum so that as he starts the project that he told us about, he would have something in writing. It says, Aiden Russell is an Eagle Scout candidate who attends the Lima Lime High School. For his Eagle Scout project, he has volunteered to clean up and renovate the town's scenic Connecticut River Overlook Park, just to the north of the Baldwin Bridge. Aiden met with the Board of Selectmen on the 3rd of August 2020 and described what he intends to do. He plans to clear overgrown vegetation around a stone wall leading to the site, work with the town's Public Works Department to trim or remove overgrown trees and shrubbery that obscure the view, refurbish or replace badly worn signage, bearing information and history about the Connecticut River and install a bench for the use of park visitors. The Board of Selectmen gave Aidan permission to proceed with this project, which he plans to complete by late spring 2021. The Board of Selectmen fully supports Aidan's project because it will return the park to its former glory and will entice visitors to visit the park. Aidan will also work with the Oline Historical Society to highlight the historical significance of the site. The Selectmen appreciate the fact that Aidan has undertaken this project, and we encourage other organizations and townspeople to support his efforts. Aidan, we look forward to following your progress and to the ribbon cutting next spring. So he's thinking of embarking on this and completing the work by next spring.
All right.
Anybody have any difficulty on it? Okay. The next item is a drainage issue on Library Lane. Tom and Christine Kataka have a water issue that's been actually evident for a while. There's a water source, possibly a spring, not sure just what, but in front of their house along Library Lane, water comes out of the property and runs across Library Lane, and that creates a hazard in the winter, and it also is just, it's not draining properly. I think they believe that there were 3 trees cut on the other side of Elm Street, which could have intercepted the water, and then when they were cut, possibly that allowed more water to migrate to the property, and the spring has sprung up. So I went out there with Ed Dante, and we inquired whether there might be a curtain drain or some other type of thing that might have caused the problem, and their answer was no, the basement's dry and there shouldn't be any kind of a sump pump, that sort of thing. I spoke with our town engineer that helps land use, Tom Metcalf, and so he offered to have a look at it, just to get his 2 cents worth. We have a schematic of the property, and I don't know exactly where the water source is on the map, but it's in front of near the front door, and so I think, generally speaking, when somebody has water coming off their property onto a town road, then it's their responsibility to figure out why and correct it. If there's a cause and effect, such as this tree situation, I don't know how you determine that, but if we engage Tom just for a little consultation, perhaps he can help us understand what may be the cause of this water. And I think we all want to have it rectified before the winter sets in. I don't know whether it might require digging the yard up to see why if there's something other than a spring, it might be some old pipe that was below the ground that now, it's hard to tell. So I think we want to have Mr. Metcalf give us a look-see and figure if he has any bright ideas. If not, then we'll probably have to come up with a posture as to what to do. So there's nothing really definite to report at this point, except that there is definitely been an ongoing water issue, and even though it's been very dry weather, the water has been running over the road. So I think we can have Mr. Metcalf look at it and advise us. So, Christine, yes.
Okay, so first thing for the record, my name is Christina, not Christine.
Okay.
And people struggle with our last name all the time. It becomes a problem for me when my first name's damaged as well. So I just wanted to bring forth a couple of other points regarding that. First of all, the trees that were taken down died because of water collection around them on Elm Street. The Archers had significant pooling of water continuously, and eventually the trees just couldn't handle it. They died, and I believe they came to the town because the concern of a safety issue of the trees falling on their house or coming across and falling on ours. They were removed. So there's an ongoing water problem on Elm Street, which when we purchased the cottage there was a conduit between both going across Elm Street and bringing the water to our cottage, which resulted in the cottage, which didn't have a great foundation, but all the floorboards in the house were rotting because of constant exposure to water. So the bigger issue is that there is an ongoing water management issue on Elm, Library Lane, and Dunn's Lane, because all of those roads come down, and even if we didn't have a spring in front of our house at this point, there's water collection on that part of Library Lane continually when we do either have rain or when the snow melts. So the upper part of Library Lane, I've noticed, does it, and I'm thinking that they're called dry wells, but it sounds like to me the word that you used with White Sand Beach was catch basins. There are catch basins on the upper part of Library Lane. And I think rather than just addressing the immediate issue in front of our house, is that there needs to be an assessment of managing the water on all those three roads. Additionally, there's an environmental concern, especially in the winter months. You now have all of that salt water, or salted, and I don't know what the chemicals are, water going into the Duck River, because that's eventually where they pool in front of the bridge and then drain off the side of the road into the Duck River. In the immediate issue, the water coming up in front of our house is contaminated with manganese, which is in the soil in that whole area. And while we're not drinking it, Library Lane has a significant number of people who walk their dogs. And dogs and other animals are drinking that water, and it's a neurotoxic. So not that anybody's gotten sick right now, but it's also a chemical issue. Our main concern is not only for us, but for people who are navigating the street, either on foot or by car. By car, it's an issue because, unfortunately, people don't heed the 20-mile-an-hour zoning for mileage, and people zoom down that street, especially people like UPS and FedEx and Prime, but many people, their private cars do. When that turns to ice, there's going to be, we've gotten by so far, but now with the addition of the spring, there is going to be the potential for an awful accident. And I think it's the town's responsibility to get that cleaned up before we have.
When did the spring manifest itself?
I can't give you a specific set time, but it was shortly after the 3 trees were taken down.
Approximately.
I'm going to say 4 or 5 weeks.
4 or 5 what?
Weeks.
No, chronologically, how far back?
So the trees, Ed would have that on his records, the actual dates, because the town took them down. So I'm thinking like towards the end of May.
So it was within this year?
Yeah, it was this year. I mean, I know that, I'm pretty sure that the Archers, it took time for them to have the town address taking down the trees as well. So we would like to leave here today with some assurance that there will be follow through and some idea of the timeline that would happen, so that we can look forward to the fact that something will be done before we have frozen ground.
Well, I think the first step will be to have the engineer look at it, because I think he can look at the topos and everything else and see how the water might flow and so forth. So,
might he also look at the other roads, because there is erosion taking place. I mean, all of that money that was spent for the macadam on that road is all falling apart on the sides because of in part because of the water that is constantly flowing over it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we start first with Tom and go from there.
Yeah. Right. We'll just take it one step at a time. Obviously, it's coming from the property, and we have properties in other parts of town where water comes off the properties, and we have to have the property owner correct it. So I don't know where it goes, but we'll look at it for sure and get a report from Tom, and if it's something that is town related, we'll evaluate that. If it's something that's lot related, we'll evaluate that.
All right, so if you can just keep us in the loop as to when he might be coming by and looking at it, and after he's made an assessment what the anticipated resolution will be, we would appreciate it.
Certainly.
All right, thank you very much for your attention to this matter.
Good enough. Okay. Turning to appointments, we regret to inform that Cheryl Poirier has resigned from the Halls Road Improvement Committee. She's pursuing other interests, and so we wish her well. She's still on the Sustainable Committee, but she had to come off of this. Turning to old business, there are 32 positive cases in Old Lyme. This is an increase of 3 from the week before. 2 persons are from the same address, but there's no particular logic as to why 3, it's like a 10% jump almost. So, I think we're getting information from other parts of the state. Seems like certain communities are having unwelcome increases here, so we'll watch it every week here, of course, but it's usually been no cases new or 1 case, but now 3 is a bit of a jump, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Can we talk about this a little bit?
What's that?
Can we talk about this?
Okay.
Can we talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
It seems like this would be the time to talk about some of the planning we need to do for what appears to be a significant concern in Eastern Connecticut. If you run the numbers from Old Lyme, yes, it's just one point in time, but our rate is 2.8%. That's concerning. Yet the 3 came and really jumped us up, so we can't just ignore that. we got some correspondence from Town Hall last week, all of us received it, about concern about the fact that lack of communication on these issues regarding employee exposure to a COVID positive case. And so this is the second time since quarantine started that we've had kind of a possible concern. And I just feel like we haven't done enough to provide protocols, guidelines, information to the staff. And in particular, the correspondence we all got this week, or last week, was regarding what is the plan for essential services should we have to shut down. In particular, this particular one was finance, payroll. What are our plans, and what are we going to do to make sure that essential services are continued should we have to shut down for a period of time. In our case, we don't have a lot of cross-training or manuals that we can train people on to back people up. So in essence, we may have to have a situation where we have people working from home with some of these essential services if we have to shut down Town Hall. So I am concerned that we have not had a meeting with each other, with our staff, or department heads on what is the plan should we have to have this happen. And when you see your rate go from, basically you're at like the 1% to almost 3%, we really can't ignore it any longer. This virus is not at East Line. We have people that leave here, go to East Line, go to Groton every day for work and return. So it's definitely not an increase. People are moving indoors. So we need to spend some time, set up a committee, I think, immediately, and follow some protocol and share that, communicate that information with our employees. Last week we received some suggested protocols from Legislature so that we can begin that conversation. What to do if you have close contact with a symptomatic case or and you're asymptomatic, and if you do develop symptoms. But what's missing is what do we do in those cases with essential services? So I really like that I'm bringing this up because I think we need to start the conversation. I think it needs to be brought up with the Board of Finance too. I actually asked this particular staff person what have the auditors suggested because they visit other municipalities and they have some suggestions too. So that's the discussion I'd like to have at the board level.
So what did Ledge Light say? I believe you said you were going to talk to him last week, Steve. You said about contact. Like I guess the big issue was someone had been in contact. So do they recommend that person stay home for 14 days, get tested, and then come back? How are they doing that?
What he said is that, or Chris Magnuson, if in the case of Lyme, we had an employee who had been exposed to somebody who tested positive and announced, I think on the Monday after the weekend, that she was positive. So our employee then went home and she held off getting tested because it might not manifest itself immediately. So I think it was something like Thursday when the test, there was a delay, or maybe it was even later. So in speaking with Chris Magnuson, she said that if your test, which is the case, the test came back negative on our employee. And so I said, well, what does that mean for return to work and so on? And she said, well, unless the person's considered essential, the employee should stay out for the 14 days, notwithstanding the positive test. In fact, she had 2 tests that were the more sophisticated tests, not the 15-minute thing. So that's what she did. And but it could be argued that her position is essential, and so she could come back to work, but you'd have to probably have it be 1 employee in the office instead of 2, or sufficient distance and so forth. So it's kind of a extra precaution. But it could be, the person could return to work under those conditions. But since she was able to direct the telephone and so forth, she could stay busy at home, and so that worked out reasonably well. Concerning other functions, there's been some traffic about the payroll and so forth, and one would hope that along with other computer stuff, certain payroll might be made possible to be done through the home as opposed to having to come to town hall. Now, obviously, if the person's in an office by themselves, you might say, well, that's a pretty safe deal so long as if they're testing negative, but if they're positive, that makes it more complicated, and who could do payroll beside that one person and all that sort of thing. So if somebody's flat on their back and not able to do it, then we need obviously backup to be able to handle a function. So when we were closed for the period of time, some people worked from town hall, other people worked at a distance, and things went along pretty well. But of course, payroll is a pretty specialized function, so it's not as easy to be redundant as other things. So hopefully we could have it so that the payroll could be done at a distance if necessary, and I guess there would need to be discussion if that person were totally unavailable, what do we do then?
Well, what can the town do, like as an employer? Say a person comes in and they said they had a contact with a person. Can we require them to get a test, or is that allowable by law? Say you can't come in until you have a test. How does that work?
I don't know.
Anybody know? Mary Jo?
I suppose if somebody says I don't want to take a test, I don't know what the answer to that is, but usually people want to know. And as I say, I think if you're exposed on Saturday or Sunday, maybe the science is you're best to wait a little bit to make sure, because there's an incubation period and all that. I'm not too versed on it, but...
Well, if so, we don't want them in the town hall.
No, but the person who learns that they've been exposed would have to go be quarantined.
So that's what we make them do now?
Yeah.
Okay.
The information that Red sent to town hall regarding close contact with positive case, it's particular the example we're talking about was that a negative COVID test does not negate the need for a 14-day quarantine. So it doesn't say we can require that, but it just means that if they do take a test and it's negative, you still have to quarantine for 14 days. However, if the person works in an essential function, they're allowed to come back to town hall, but they need to wear a mask, stay 6 feet away from others, should not be in a vehicle with others, monitor for symptoms, must leave work if they develop, and get tested. They must stay home, isolate from others while awaiting results. So if they feel like they've got symptoms, then they must get tested. The close contact can be tested to establish a baseline, but a negative test does not mean you will not become infected. It can take up to 14 days. That's in the case where somebody has close contact, which means less than 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, of some management process. And I guess, I think the thing is, we are now at the point where last spring, there weren't that many cases of COVID. So yeah, things went along pretty well because it wasn't spread in the community. Now we are seeing community spread. It's a different animal at this point. They're seeing it because family members are getting together and not following precautions. They're not seeing it because of schools. They're not seeing it because of going into a store because people are moving around. The exposure is limited. Or they're seeing it as people in the office who aren't wearing masks and they aren't following precautions. We need to be setting some guidelines. We need to be setting some protocols, and we need to be enforcing it so that we don't have a problem. But the reality is, because the cases are growing, we probably will have a problem, and we better be prepared for it. So what I hear you saying today, Tim, is that you think that maybe we could do payroll, for example, or plan for it at home. In which case, what do we need to do for that? Do we need secure computers, software? What does the payroll function recommend to you that we do? What has Amy recommended that she needs to make her feel comfortable?
Well, we have to have a system that somebody can either work from home or not. I mean, if it can't be mechanically done, that's a problem. So hopefully we can get the IT committee to look and see if that kind of a link can be done. Obviously the phones have been, can be switched. I know the assessor, she gets on her computer from home, so it seems that people can have a computer link to their local computer here.
Are you meeting with employees on this?
What?
Have you had an employee meeting on this?
No.
Are you planning to do that?
I think we should do that once we understand. I mean, not all these functions would be of the same nature as payroll because that is a more specialized and single purpose thing. But
identifying what you consider essential first.
Yeah.
I think. And then you can, people are really busy. I know that it's hard to get people cross-trained right in a crisis situation, but we definitely need to start developing that backup support. Because it could not be the virus brought this weakness, I guess, in our system. It could be something else. Could have a hurricane or something. People could have been injured. There could be a lot of reasons why we wouldn't be able to finish or complete our essential services, and we just haven't addressed this yet. But the fact that we've got some of our people really concerned and upset, I think we really need to either put this up. If you're saying that the IT committee, great, but I wonder who else, maybe the department has together also to talk about what they think they need to do, and you meet with their employees and bring that back to you or to the committee that we set up to have a plan going forward. And I quite honestly think here it is October, we don't have much time before everyone's going to be back inside, and I'm worried about Thanksgiving. So I would say between now and Thanksgiving is when we really need to get our protocols for town hall in place. Maybe work with CCM on some things. But at a minimum, we've got the guidelines. We can start our discussions with employees on legislature and start the discussion with.
Good point. Yep.
Can you talk about it tomorrow with Board of Finance too?
I don't know if we even need to ask for them finance-wise.
Well,
I think
budget.
payroll is essential.
Well,
Auditing is essential.
finance would say, what do you need money for, or what's it going to cost? So I don't think we're at that point.
No, I don't think it's about getting money. It's about controls. I mean, putting the controls on our systems to make sure that we're able to have continuity of business.
Well, I don't think the Board of Finance is involved in that.
I kind of think that's why we have audit function. do you have the proper controls on your systems to carry on business? Should
Well,
you have a hurricane? Should your computer system go down?
we can mention it, but I think Board of Finance is more in the vein of we need funds to do something because we need to have remote computers and it's going to cost so many dollars, that sort of thing.
But I think that's part of it too.
But
Well, Melinda dropped this stuff off when they were giving their speech here about the Halls Road thing, about the laptops and or tablets. And there's two separate things between basically $4,000 and $8,000. Here's one for each. It gets kind of confusing. That this would entitle everybody to be able to remote for the. It's got all messed up. Right, but this would have to come before Board of Finance, definitely for the purchase, but because I guess there was talk about having the essentials be able to work from home.
is this more different?
More,
stuff?
yeah. Actually, leave me one. There should be two.
I know a lot of towns, that was one of the things they did initially when we were asked to prepare for this. They put a lot of money in towards IT support should the town hall have to be shut down for something, that business center.
Well, I think we're going to have to look into, buying some sort of to make it happen. So I think Melinda's going to talk to you tomorrow about this.
Yeah, well, we'll have to.
Yeah. And then maybe you can bring it up before the Board of Finance or something. Because at some point in time, we're probably going to have to do this.
They look like three of the same thing.
Yeah, there's a few of the same. There's one.
There's
There's
all
one
these
that's
are the same. Well, rather than shuffle papers, let's look at it.
Did you have a question? A comment?
Yeah, actually, I go to the treasurer, and I'm wearing a mask, that's where I'm going to be on my treasurer.
You better come a little closer so the mics can pick you up.
Regarding payroll, Nicole provided me a quote earlier today that to be able to do payroll remote, it's a $250 setup fee, and then $250 a month, that's correct, to maintain the system. So if you're looking for something to bring to the Board of Finance tomorrow, that's a project that we can go ahead with right now, and the specific number and a specific quote you could bring to them tomorrow, which I think would be important, right? I don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we have to miswrite the money, or delay payroll, I think is a better way to describe it, because something happened and we had to shut the building down.
So, do you have a proposal on it?
Well, there's a lot of proposals going around. This is something that we at the IT committee had talked about back in March and didn't go anywhere.
Well, if it's $250, I'm sure we can find a home for that.
Well, we have to, there's bigger issues here as well, because it's we can get Amy a Chromebook or remote access in for under $1,000 probably. But then there's a question of, well, what about everybody else? I have nothing. We're talking about people working from home who just have their phone forwarded to them. They're fielding calls. They can't get on anything to do with the network.
Well, Melinda does.
Well, because she has exactly what we're talking about.
Yes.
She has a VPN
Right.
line.
And you got to also figure that if somebody gets really sick, they're not going to be working from home. So what do we do if there's only one person who can do a specific function? We don't have a lot of redundancy in a small operation, so that needs to be explored too.
I agree, and I think there's a host of issues, not just this, that should be addressed by the IT committee that has not been addressed. There's a lot of things we've thrown around that just never seem to go anywhere.
Well, I guess it has to get focused and done. Yeah.
Nicole, who's on the IT committee?
It is myself, the assessor Melinda, and Michelle Norman, which is Tim's executive assistant. And it's always been the first selectman who has headed up the IT committee. So Tim would be the...
Well, I'm such a boob on technology, I think it should be somebody else.
Is there somebody else who would be good to be on it? To then share his, thoughts with Tim?
Well, I'd like Amy to be on it. But as far as someone to head it up, I would, if Tim doesn't feel he wants to do it, if someone else could be found or would be willing, that would be beneficial.
I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot. If we're looking for someone who's got an elected title to lead up the committee.
Yeah, I think if you have somebody who's well versed in this stuff, it would be a lot better than...
Yeah, I'd have to get versed in it. I'm an engineer, but unfortunately jet engines and computers, well, I guess they do go together these days, but...
And I'm not sure if this has to be appointed by the selectmen. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think the IT committee was appointed, really. Was it? No.
No, I think it's something on the spot.
But we could do an inventory of all the departments and see if somebody had to work remotely, what's involved. And like the building department has online, they're pretty automated and so forth. So we could go through the whole thing, and there might be some areas that really don't need a heck of a lot, like public works. If somebody's sick, somebody else will pitch in. But payroll is a good example. And so if we can get somebody functional at a distance, that would be terrific. If it requires somebody as a backup because that person's in the hospital, that's a whole different matter.
There's backup in the finance office. If Amy can't do payroll, I can do payroll. She can't, because I did it for many months when I had nobody. So there's nothing that I can't, that she can do that I can't do. Maybe not as good.
Yeah.
And attention to detail.
And some things might just simply wait if it's not time critical, but probably payroll is not one of those.
Right.
So I think if we put our heads together, we can see where our vulnerabilities are and see what we can do to help that out. And if there's some hardware and software and so forth that would be, if it's $250 type of stuff, that's not hard. We can figure that out. If there's, I don't know, I didn't even see this till just now, but we ought to try to come up with the IT group to say, okay, here gets us pretty good shape come hell or high water. And if there are positions that we simply don't have redundancy to fill, then say like we used the Council of Governments for land use, like if Dan were out or something, we could borrow or pay for somebody over there, and there might be other sources where if somebody was simply not available, we can still operate. So it's certainly a worthwhile thing.
She got 2 quotes. Yeah, if you talk to her. One was for laptops.
Well, let's get that on the.
And the other one,
we'll get moving on that. That's a good idea.
Exactly half the price. So.
And just about the whole COVID thing, I mean, you can all discuss it here, what the rules are and all of that, but there's nobody directing, communicating anything, talking to employees at all. There's no. And what happened last week with someone having exposure is just an example of that. That rumor went around town hall and it was rampant. Who, what, when, what should we do? Oh, and it just festers and nobody addresses anything.
Yeah.
I just don't think I just don't think anyone should have to come down and beg for someone just to give us some direction. It's just I find that just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And there's no direction from and there's no one even responsible for anything. I don't know if it should be our safety committee, should it be our emergency management director, who should be heading up COVID encompassing all of these things, and who should be meeting with people, and there's just, it's hands up and oh well, and I just we should have done this, we should have done that, and I don't know, so that's.
Well, we can get better at that for sure, so.
Well, I think that needs to happen. That's a lack of communication in public health crisis. That's unacceptable. You guys should have some meetings. You guys should have some guidelines. You should have a chain of command. And quite honestly, it's Tim and Dave. And it really is. We have a declared emergency in town, and it's very clear where the chain starts. It has to start from the top down. If you guys aren't getting guidelines, if you guys aren't wearing your masks and doing the things that you need to do to keep each other safe, there's a number to follow. The state is very clear. People aren't doing what they're supposed to do. There's a number. We can knock on the state and have people come in if that's what we want to do. But I think we can take care of it here if we start with the guidelines you've been given with Bloodline and have a chain of command and a call list of what happens when. I mean, that's a particular employee should have been given some guidelines. Who do I call? But it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like she decided upon it, what she needed to do herself, as opposed to knowing who to call, what to do. We've been living with this for 7 months. We should have some communication with the employees. We should be doing probably what the school is doing. We should have, some kind of similarity to it. But, when I found out, I didn't want to come into town hall that day. I met Dave for something outside. I did not know what I was going to be walking into. As a selectman, I want to see some communication for our employees. It's going to get worse. We cannot ignore it. We've already got nearly a 2.8% rate this week. That's a scary number for a small town.
And my other concern really in town hall is that there's people that are older here. There's a lot of, I don't know what's elderly, I don't mean to say that, but there's a lot of older people that are over the age where they say you gotta be really careful. So I'm really worried about them the most, I guess,
Understandable. This week I was talking to somebody that works for Pfizer. The virus has more, so it's genetically changed. It's more virulent, which means it's more contagious. Doesn't mean that people are getting hospitalized more people are dying, but this thing is spreading, and we're all going to come into contact with somebody that's positive. It's just going to happen, and so we need to have clear understanding, not panicking, but at least have a direction of what we're supposed to do. No one is a panic, but it's going to happen. And if we don't get it by Thanksgiving, I guarantee we'll have it by Christmas. So,
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Soundview sidewalk, we got to speed this up because we're running pretty late here. You want to report on that? And then I'll make mention.
We're going to have a meeting tonight, 7:30, to prepare for a public information session.
Could you push that thing the other side?
We're going to
I can hear you through the map.
public information session on October 22nd. And this is going to be on WebEx, so it's going to be kind of interesting. Basically, the committee and the design engineer will be managing this public information session to update people on what the grant is, what the project involves, and then there'll be a chance for a public input or feedback. My concern is I think it will be hard for one of us to manage the computer, trying to get people on board, so I'd like somebody else, like Michelle N, if possible, to run the program, be a host, so that the committee, myself being part of that, can focus on the information, as opposed to trying to see who's raising their hand online and push buttons. I think it would go much smoother if we could have Michelle M manage that process. So that's why I sent you that email last week asking for her support that night. We realize that the budget is, how like to do all of Shore Road after we complete Hartford Avenue. We had our town attorney ask the Department of Labor to see if we needed to have prevailing wage for the project, because the way the prevailing wage law is written, it's very gray. It looks like the way it's written, that if it's new project, new development, new sidewalks, we would not have to have prevailing wage till the project was $1 million. We're a $400,000 project. We got a letter, I think it was Friday, from our town attorney saying the DOL believes that we do have to pay prevailing wage, which again will really be on the sidewalk we can do. And our engineer had told us at our last meeting the day before, I guess that was last Thursday, that his estimates include prevailing wage, and we would have about enough money to do about 500 feet of Shore Road. So we would be having to look, at least we'll have the plan complete. We'd have to look, as we've always said, we'll have to go out for another grant to complete the whole project on Shore Road.
And the cost of materials now is skyrocketing by the month. So hopefully by the time this starts, I mean, we can still be in budget too, because it's astronomical jumps.
Well, I did a memo to the one area I don't know is the legal. I've got to analyze that, but it seems to me that with the prevailing wage decision, that's not good. I don't know whether it's worth spending any more money on it, because trying to fight the Department of Labor might be difficult. But on the back of the memo, I tried to account for various things that we know exist that need to be spent, so including a contingency of $40,000, which will ultimately, hopefully, if it's not used that much, would be money to help pay for things. But if that contingency were held back, it looks to me like we have a fairly meager sum to be able to talk about Route 156. You come from 400,000 grant, subtracting Hartford sidewalks of 235,000, the private property 52,000, construction services 15,000, and then the contingency that leaves 58,000. There are ineligible costs that can't be charged to the grant. The survey work, another 15,000, which is construction services that are not eligible. And we do not have a good handle on any non-sidewalk work on 156. For instance, these signs and islands and things, I've not seen a figure that, fine, putting a sidewalk in, we don't really have the same issues we do on Hartford Avenue, but there are other non-sidewalk things that might be responsible that the town takes care of. And then the legal, plus a little contingency there. So I think finance needs to know that there will be some need for funding probably in the first quarter, and we'll try to do a better job of putting it together. But I think I was surprised when we started subtracting what we do know about Hartford Avenue and the contingency. It doesn't leave a heck of a lot to think about Halls Road.
I wasn't too surprised, frankly, because right at the beginning,
well, when you get
the
to
project was to do Hartford Avenue, but we were told by the engineers they thought we had enough to do both. But the actual grant was based on the work that was estimated for Hartford Avenue.
But it sort of begs the question, if that number gets any lower, is it even worth expending energy on 156?
Right, yeah.
So.
I agree. I think that's last year to use them on 156. So I'm not an engineer, I don't know what 500 feet of sidewalk looks like exactly, but we prioritized the corner of Cross Lane and 156, because then we had the connectivity piece from north of 156. So that's the part that we would like to see. Now, if our bids come in, I'm not sure based on what Chris had said, but the feedback we received last spring from the DOT was that the bids were coming in better than they expected. So if our bids come in that they can do more sidewalk on 156 for the 400, then great. Yeah. But this is, I think he said this was kind of a worst case scenario for us. So hopefully we would have better luck when we go out to bid. We're not going to know until we go out to bid.
Yeah. Well, we'll go as far as we can go.
Right, and that was always the plan.
If it's around that number, I don't think it's even worthwhile to mobilize on 156.
Well, we got to see what the numbers are first, you know. So. Yeah.
I think you the number back.
Yeah. Okay, Mile Creek Bridge. That job is really complete. We did a statement of work substantially complete with the engineer. There are a few loose ends to tidy up, retainage and so forth, but if you've been over the bridge, it's very impressive and job well done. Haynes Park, the foundation was poured at the end of the week, so that is underway, and so I think they're still looking for a year-end type of completion date. In the way of the absentee ballots, as of Friday, or Thursday, I guess, there were actually 2,425 ballots were mailed out, not the applications, mind you, but the ballots. And ironically, 1,425 had come back. So there's 1,000 that are out there. I think the registrars believe that there will be, the next couple of weeks, or the 2-week interval from then to now, or till election day, we'll see a lot of activity. But it's running, seemingly to me, at a slower pace. If we had a similar percentage as to the primary, I think you would have seen close to 4,000 absentees, but with only 2,400 issued as of October 14th, unless there's a real wad of them that come in, it looks like we'll be in the 3,000, 3,500 range. They are ramping up and they will have a lot of work going on to open those ballots on election day. Speaking of election day, there were meetings. There was a meeting of various people, including the superintendent of schools, to prepare for the in-person voting. Dave Roberge has been working on with the registrars about the setup and so forth, so that seems to be pretty well organized. I think they have the number of staff that will be needed to man the polls, and so we'll just see how many people. If this absentee ballot number is a little low, maybe we'll have more in-person voting. I think we were thinking that if it was truly a tidal wave of ballots, that there would be less in-person voting, but we'll see. So I think a lot of discussion with Public Works and police and the schools, so I think we're in pretty good shape, and we may have a number of new voters coming into town hall during the election day as well. So we're hopefully in a position to address all of that. So I will unmute and see if there is public comment. from,
All participants have been unmuted.
do we have people on the phone who wish to make public comment? All right, hearing none.
Wait, I'm here. First Selectman Griswold, I'm here. I'd like to make a comment, please. My name's Mary Daly. I was there earlier. Just in regard to the sidewalk issues, just keep in mind that 156 is so dangerous to walk on, especially near the beach community where people are pulling into Hartford Avenue, Portland Avenue, Swan Avenue, the private beaches. It's a very dangerous little area, so it would be great to have a sidewalk there, actually. My other question or concern was in regard tonight, listening to your discussion about Halls Road. I appreciate your sensitivity to the community there and the homeowners in particular, especially in light of what's happening with Soundview. But I was just surprised that you suggested the possibility that there would be a community septic system, even though the DEP has rejected that idea twice already for Soundview. So I'm just curious why you think that would be a feasible solution for Halls Road when it's already been rejected for Soundview, or what you see as the differences between the two communities. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on the phone? All right. Okay,
All participants have been muted.
We'll turn to other business. See if anyone has any other.
I got a call today, and it was Mr. Bergeron, I believe, and he was about his house on Black Hall Pond, and he said the water level is now up 9 inches, and there's no flow going out the stream. So obviously it's blocked up, and he would like us to talk to the land use or land trust and see about correcting this problem, because it's not going away.
I guess the only thing we can do is to see if we can get somebody in a kayak to go from basically Whippoorwill up to the
Or
pond.
block it or something, yeah. Someone's gonna have to go up there, so. But I don't know if it's a,
Have we decided we weren't going to get the beaver deceiver back yet?
The
Well, we
dam
put-
was removed, the impediment was removed, so it was too shallow for the beaver deceiver wherever the dam was. So they,
well, they've obviously constructed another one, so,
Well-
which they will continue to do.
yeah. Well, we could ask Land Trust if they'd be willing to do that. It's always, you really don't know where it is until you actually do the effort and find it, whether on whose property is the dam located, if there is a dam.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a chronic problem.
I know that beaver deceiver group out of Massachusetts had different contractions, if you will, based on the area that you needed the beavers deceived by.
Yeah.
I think we should seriously think about putting that in the budget for the next budget cycle. This is
Well,
time for 5 years.
I think we can analyze and see if we can find it, and then if it's on someone's property, they're technically responsible to cure the problem. We don't own land in that corridor, so we can advise, try to be helpful, but we probably don't want to say we'll take care of everything, because then it will be an incessant burden for the town. So let's see if we can have the land trust do the kayak routine and see if they can find out if there is a dam and where is it.
Yeah.
It's not the same place. We
You know,
said it's up 9 inches.
The Black Hall Pond is up 9 inches, and it's been dry, so obviously it's not from the
Well, we've
abundance of
had a
rain.
couple of big rains. I don't know.
Not that much. But anyway.
Well, you look at,
Still,
no
I mean,
sense speculating.
yeah, I mean, we might have to put the deceiver in the budget next year, just in case.
Well, as I say, if we can identify where the dam is, and if it's on some person's property, then ideally
they're responsible.
Legally, they're supposed to take care of it.
Right.
Where we put it in and backfill them.
I don't know.
I think that last time we talked about this, this group that we were talking about had a surveillance program. They could be called in to survey different areas where we think there might be a problem. And then they would determine what the solution might be.
But that was my only comment tonight.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I had a few things. I'm going to try and prioritize given the hour.
If you could push that thing farther away, because I'm not going to be able to respond to you. It sounds like you're in a tube. There you go. Thank you.
I think a couple citizen issues that come before us. The Reynolds had some property concerns just north of 156. And then a business owner shared some concerns on some curbing that off of Falls Road by the donut place, and I haven't heard any follow-up on those concerns. Do you have any updates?
I'm sorry, I just...
The curbing, you said?
Jim, I don't want to take my mask off.
Well, just don't use the microphone. I can hear you without the microphone there. Otherwise, I don't know what to do.
Turn it off.
So, curbing on Halls Road, you said?
Yeah.
I heard it.
We've called twice. Ed's going to give you the number of somebody. I'll try to get through to some supervisor, but we have called twice and no response, or no action, I guess. So we hope to get it. He sent me an email, and I will endeavor to get it taken care of, but it's not our road, so we...
Okay. And then the Reynolds that came to us a couple meetings ago about their property.
Yep.
The construction across the street. Where are we at with that?
Zoning matter. The Old Lyme Shores is going to be talking to the zoning commissioner for a special use permit for the odor control facility. And as far as any kind of stockpile for the sewer project for Old Lyme Shores, that would be a separate administrative permit to Dan, as I understand it. So I'm not sure where that stands, but the special use is, I think, going to be a November zoning meeting.
So will these residents be told that their issue is...
Oh yeah, they get notification for the special use one, and I'm not sure on the administrative thing whether if that is the ZEO, I don't know if it's in the form of a zoning meeting or not, but he would be the one to make that happen.
Okay. And then thank you for dealing with the Gatalka's concerns. I appreciate the fact that you got Tom to come out for them. That's terrific. And then lastly, I just wanted to let the board know that the town of Simsbury passed a resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. And that's what their resolution looked like. I got one for both of you. And what they had done to promote getting this passed is they actually have a committee that they call their Spirit Committee that worked on different initiatives that affect the town. And this was one of their projects that they worked on this summer, and then they passed this resolution at the end of September. But their first selectman said that they'll be working with department heads to review town policies and procedures with an equity lens going forward. So they actually did this in a very coordinated fashion with concerned volunteers in their committee to create awareness of the situation and basically have a committee to put some teeth behind the resolution going forward. And I thought it was important because although Simsbury is larger than we are, there's some similarities between our communities, and I thought it would be important for this board to take a look at that to see how other towns are taking this responsibly the next step. Thank you.
All right. That likely concludes the agenda. It's 6:41.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Now, Chris, I guess we'll need your magic on this.
I can get together with Nicole, or are you just giving this to me to look at it?
No, you can have that one.
No, I mean, do you want to get together with Nicole and start in the committee and put together a number for the Board of Finance?
Yeah, I think if we